about 5 to 7 minutes after 6 o'clock. I don't know if this will populate. I'm just on here to give you a quick update. That's why I look like crap. But I'm here to bring you the updates. So about an hour ago, news broke. They stated that there is an arrest warrant out of Wyoming issued for Brian Laundrie. The arrest warrant is for unauthorized use of devices, which translates roughly from the warrant into basically bank fraud, for a sum, they said, of around $1,000, which is a felony. It may be more than that. Hello Denise. So I have just a little bit of information. I look like crap, but I wanted to come on and give you all the information. About an hour ago, roughly an hour ago, the news broke that there was an arrest warrant issued for Brian Laundrie. The arrest warrant is out of Wyoming, and it is for unauthorized use of devices. Hi everybody. So it's basically bank fraud of around about $1,000, which is a felony. So he does have a felony warrant out of Wyoming. Now you ask, why are they doing this? Well, they probably, from the search and from the tech devices that they searched the other day, they probably got enough information to confirm that he had probably used Gabby's bank account, used a debit card, used something in roughly the amount of about $1,000. And it's enough of a criminal felony level to get him and hold him. And I'm sure they're wanting to get him in custody and hold him so that if something else breaks, they will have him in custody. Hi, I'm doing good. How are you doing? I look like crap, but I just heard this and I wanted to, as soon as I got the whole story, I wanted to bring it to you. So he does have a felony warrant out of Wyoming. And it says use of unauthorized devices, which basically boils down to he used a bank card or accessed a bank account and took roughly around $1,000 or more, probably more. It may just be that maybe the level on the charge, $1,000 and up, becomes a felony, so it's around 1,000, but it may be much more. So he does have a felony warrant out of Wyoming on him. And because he is across state lines, and there are multiple states working on this, and then we also have Utah that has a 911 call that will probably be used for, as you know, for court information. There you go. He used it August 30th and 1st of September. Thank you so much. This is basically, I anticipate some federal umbrella crap coming down on him. So just wait for it. I'm sure they're trying to start with the little things that they can get to stick immediately on him. And then they will, as they get better informed and find more stuff and can basically make sure that when they do lay the charge will go through and they will not lose it. Because you can only charge a person one time. Yes, we're talking about Gabby. You can only charge a person one time. So if they like put something on him and they don't have all the information, it goes to court and they drop it because they cannot, you know, present the burden of proof that it did occur, then they cannot press that charge on him for the same incident again. So they're screwed. So that's why they have to take this much time to make sure that they have everything in line so that when they do get him, they have him. So I'm sure they're starting with the first felony that they can absolutely confirm and prove in court, and that would be the bank fraud, the use of unauthorized devices. And it is felony level, and it is out of Wyoming. Now, people have asked me, what do you think about the parents? There's a weird thing in Florida, which I never understood, but I had several offenders. Denny says he needs to be brought in and questioned. He does, and the only reason they haven't, of course he's missing right now, but they also you have to make sure when you're doing a high-scale investigation like this that you follow all the rules and all the laws. Because if they can get you on a technicality and get off scot-free, they will. So you want to make sure that you follow all the laws and all the rules, and you also have to make sure you're protecting his rights as well as everyone else. And sadly, yes, he still has rights, even as a suspect. So everybody's asking me, what do I think about what happened with the parents? Well, I used to have like North Carolina, Kentucky. I've had people transfer from Tennessee to Washington before. So I dealt with a lot of ICOTs. It's basically the official system is called ICHAOS, and it's basically the intercompact system. It's state transfer of criminals, felony level criminals. And I had a lot of people go to Florida, and I had a couple of guys get in trouble in Florida. And Florida has this strange little rule, this little law, that parents cannot be charged with accessories after the fact. I don't know when that came to be. They've always had it since I became an officer. They always had it. I didn't like it. So when people ask me, what do you think? I think they're either going to be named, if they had any knowledge before the death of Miss Petito, they could be an accomplice. They may have some kind of obstruction charge. That's completely possible. But what I think will really happen to them is they'll probably get into some kind of aiding and abetting issue if they do take him in for the homicide of Miss Petito. So that is what I think will probably occur. I probably am following the narrative more closely that when they took the camper out and did that 3 to 4 day camping trip, I think that they stocked it and they left him little stashes so that he could find his stashes as he moved north. That's personally what I think. Now, what decision he may have made once he got out there, whether to run or to do something stupid and self-harm, we won't know until he's found, one way or the other. But parents in Florida cannot have an accessory after the fact charge. I don't know why. It's Florida. They just said, hey, thought that one up. So we have to understand that as well. We also have to understand that not only does he reside in Florida, but the first charges came out of Wyoming, and we do have a 911 call also out of Utah. So this is, it's got, there are 3 levels at least to this, possibly more, depending on the states. If you use the card anywhere else in any other states, those could potentially come up as well. We may not know about those until those states take action, and they may not choose to take action until he's in custody. So there's a lot of layers to this that's going on, and you kind of have to look at things and go, what makes the most sense? Because normally the easiest option is normally the option that people take. Now, I have been told that his mother apparently at some point did work in the court system, or was potentially had a lawyer or worked in the courts. He used it in Illinois. So I'm thinking that that's why he lawyered up so quickly. I think that they do have probably more knowledge than most about the court system, about the way things work, and about the best way to avoid, further, putting your head on the chop block. Because literally anything that he could open his mouth and say would be used against him. I understand him pleading the fifth and getting a lawyer. I understand that. That's his right. We all have to understand that. It's creepy and it feels wrong, but it's his right. And what I cannot understand is the fleeing, because as an adult he would have to know this is not going to end well. I mean, he has to understand he is going to be found. So I think they will find him. But I also think that nationwide they're using this story as a great diversion, because this has been a very important news week. As I'm sure many of you have noticed, this has been a very important news week. And I think they're also using this case as kind of a deflection to keep everybody's energy somewhere else as to talking about the news week and the UN speech and all the other junk that we've got going on. So I think there's a few layers to how this is being used in the news as well, which is sad. Because everybody should just be concerned because someone was murdered. And they should want to rectify that and let us all understand, and use this as a learning lesson for domestic violence, but they're using it as a distraction for other stuff. Yeah. So that's sad, because every person that has something like this happen to them, they should be front and center the news we should know about more of these cases. And if you Google about domestic violence or domestic violent cases, or just kind of go through the news, you'll notice there are a lot of these right now. A lot. There are a lot of relationship, family issues right now. Domestic violence is, oh my gosh, it's pathetic. And just the other day, if you notice in my videos below, Ryan Epchurch, the little country singer from just outside of Nashville, said that he had 3 people in one day attempt to come on his property because they were so emotionally distraught to meet him. Rebecca says, Rebecca Fudge, I don't understand how they could let him slip away like that. Why was there no cops in front and back of his house? Yeah. I would say probably if they were surveilling him, I would say that if one of his parents is affiliated in the justice system or in the legal system, they probably probably stated you're going to be in trouble if you're doing this. But I also think that Florida is very embarrassed because he did slip away and they did not know it. You can tell that it was an oopsie on them. They had no idea. The news lies all the time. Thank you for saying that. They only feed you what they want you to have. They do. They want to keep us in an emotional fear state. Yeah, they are not making what I would call appropriate moral compass decisions. I think right now they're in save your butt mode, cover your butt mode, and it shows. It shows because they're not talking, because they know that anything they say will probably give way to what's going on. And to me, it looks like a strategic plan where he got home, they took the other camper out, and then they come back, and then boom, he leaves. They stated he left and just left the Mustang, and that's where he liked to go hiking, but, you know, they didn't know he was gone, but they knew enough to know to go get the car. I mean, if I thought they had just went hiking and potentially was just trying to clear their head or even making a possibly bad decision, I would have left that vehicle there because that person would need to come home, right? I don't have cable or satellite, so I have to physically go after all the news I read, and I've been reading a lot of Israel and UK and Australia news, and it is eye-opening. It is very eye-opening what's going on right now. And if you have not read the story by the London Telegraph about DARPA and the Pentagon and Fauci, you need to look that one up. That one's an eye-opener, I'm just going to tell you. Canada's fixing to fall apart. Did you hear Trudeau the other day give his speech talking about the vaccinated and unvaccinated? He said, those people are putting us at risk. Oh, when politicians point out and create a wedge in their voter base and in their subjects, oh, it's bad news, people. The world hates us. The world, I think the world's idea is that you should have the right to hate anyone you hate. Instead of us being humans and going, you should be able to love whoever you want to love, now it's you have the right to hate anyone you want to hate. And so there's been a lot breaking the news this week, but nobody's paying attention. My daughter lost an internship in college. After they had trained her, spent like 7 weeks with her to make so many training hours, then they said, well, you have to wear a mask while you're here. And she said, I didn't have to wear a mask while I was training. Well, we're starting that next week, and you're going to have to go get the vaccine before we can officially sign the paperwork. And she was like, I'm not going to do that because there's been so many issues with the hormones and young women and reproductive issues. She's like, I just want to wait for there's more long-term information for me because I do want to be a mother one day. I want to have a family, and it looks like this could potentially not allow that to happen for me. And they were like, sorry. And she was like, I've been here around for 7 weeks, no mask. If I was going to bring something in, I would have already done it. Why are you concerned about it now? And then they go and they're like, well, you could make us all sick. She's like, I could have made you all sick for 7 weeks. Why are you worried about it now? And they're like, well, you'll bring the virus in. She's like, and anyone here that's even vaccinated could bring it in. She's like, we're all petri dishes. We all remain petri dishes. She's like, the only difference is someone else may have experimental drugs in their body and I may not. And they couldn't justify the reason. Of course, she's a little, she's medical minded with her schooling and stuff. And they really couldn't, satisfy her curiosity as to why they were making the decision. They just stated it was their right to do so, and they did so. So I am of the mind is if you need to make a decision, you make the most informed decision you can make, and you make your decision. It's your decision. I don't have any right to make your decision, and you don't have any right to make my decision, and that's the way everybody on this earth should look at each other. But for some reason, it's not going that way. So I'm just going to say there have been a lot of interesting news stories this week on that regard. Been a lot of new findings. India is fighting it amazingly. They didn't want the vaccine, but they have found something that is fighting it amazingly. Go read up what they're using. And they are deleting it immediately from their large population, doing fantastic, because they were one of the worst struck. Now they're doing great. So I'm just going to say, something's working that they don't want us to know is working. And the sad thing is I do these searches, and I have to turn on a VPN to get any information that has any different viewpoint. Yeah, everyone basically can carry this virus, transmit this virus. If you think that the vaccine is going to reduce your symptoms or is going to benefit you in some way, then by all means, if you feel that way, that is your decision. I will hold back hell and high water to let you make your own decision. But as a human being, I expect the same in return. And what we're seeing is now we're seeing a switch. So, you know, I don't really ascribe to any political party. I don't really like politics. I think they're all kind of crooked. But I'm trying to understand how we have switched narratives so quickly, because last year they were screaming, the left was screaming that universal health care should be a thing because it's a human right. But now they're screaming, you will get no health care unless you do what I tell you to do. What happened to the human right? How can we take away that human right so quickly if that was your true belief and the true way you felt and the true thing, if you were really fighting for human right, would you not be fighting for people to be able to make their own decision? So they can't like answer the question. So and the news media using the picture of the cowboys with their split reins and saying that they were whipping them, and then Maxine Waters coming out and saying this is worse than slavery. How could it have been worse than slavery if it was it didn't even occur? Those were split reins, and if you ever rode horses that have split reins, if you work cattle, you get used to using that split rein as something to help give the cattle more momentum to move, or you know, or get your horse turned the right direction if they don't listen to your legs, because Western horses work primarily off leg pressure. And so they ran with that. So now if I try to have a conversation with anyone over the internet, they immediately throw up that, of course, Border Patrol is racist because they're using whips. And I'm like, did you read the correction? Did you understand that that was split reins? And they don't want to hear it. It's better to be right than to be factual. And I'm sitting here going, oh, that's not good. That's not good at all. But they did come out, Border Control told that they were no longer allowed to use horses. Probably the most helpful thing in trying to catch and deter groups of large people. You know, you just have to kind of, I would think it would be easier to kind of herd them and get around and catch them if you were on something that could run up to 45 miles per hour for a quarter mile. Just my thought. But now they've taken away the Border Patrol's ability to use horses. Which puts the people in back to man on man, which is more apt to end in physical force, because the horses are just intimidating enough to make them run the other way without any force being expelled. Now we've taken away that tool. I know I showed Western for a long time. I did team pinning. I wasn't very good at roping. I could rope what I needed to rope to get, you know, around the farm, but I was never really good at roping. But I did barrels and poles and team pinning and some Western pleasure and stuff like that. Some equitation classes, but I grew up with split reins, and my split reins were 7 foot long because I had the really pretty decorative split reins. So my reins were 7 feet long, and they went apart. And the reason they're used like that is when the cowboys rope and they jump off, that rein can come forward and drop on the ground separate from the rope. It won't get tangled. That horse sees that rope on the ground and knows it's tight, and it's supposed to keep its mind on that cow and keep that rope tight. But it knows it can't go anywhere. When that rein's down, you don't leave your cowboy, you pay attention to your cow. And they don't understand the use of them, but they want to immediately jump on what they perceive as the use of them. That would be like me calling Maybelline and telling them that, you know, their mascara was racist. I know nothing about mascara, so I wouldn't even know how to begin that conversation. But anyway, tons of news stories this week. Tons. Tons. Even one Chinese official coming forth stating some really horrible things. And that one's getting pulled down as fast as it goes up, but it's still floating on TikTok. Yeah, everything's racist now. I know. Everything is. And, you know, this, like I said in my video to Ron at church the other night, bless their heart, those 3 people, he was like, why is this happening? And so I did a video, which he immediately responded to. And he knows how to get hold of me. We've talked before, but I do these videos that, you know, when he's able and not working like a manic man, that he can see. And he responded immediately. But what it is people they've had their fear threshold right here, you know, for 2 years. Well, we all know what fear does to you. I mean, it changes you chemically, hormonally. It changes your brain function. It could actually reduce and manipulate the maps in your brain, the synapses in your brain. And the high chemical stuff will keep you in a emotional state, to where you're making bad decisions. Every decision you make is because you're in fear. When you make a decision out of fear, out of emotion, you're going to make the wrong decision. But they keep us there because when you're in fear, people that have been in fear and they've been in, you know, they've just been in trauma and fear and feel like they've been in a whirlwind, they will latch onto anything that looks like a way out. Anything, just as long as they can lay down that burden for a minute. And so when the government comes out and gives options, and people grab onto them because it seems like the only way out, so they're ready to grab onto anything. And sadly, anything is about the best way I can describe what the government has thrown at us the last year. So it's very strange the way this is going down. For me, I immediately said, for years I've been in an abusive relationship with my government, but last year when all this started, I immediately said, why are they putting us in the fear threshold? What are they going to make us run to or from? And you say the truth and they'll get rid of you. Well, they have to come down my road and deal with me, so that's fine. But if I didn't say it, I would hold myself accountable if I didn't say it. So my heart is one of those, I have to say it. If I think it could hurt me, I have to warn you and tell you I think it could hurt you too, and you have to make your decision. But I want to inform you. And I like it when people do that the other way around too. You don't hear all the information, you don't use all the information you hear, but isn't it great to have more information than you need to make a decision? Always, right? So that's what people in America should be demanding, is more information than we need to make this decision, but because somebody needs to come clean. So it's been a whirlwind of a news week. I mean, horrible. But people are reprioritizing their life, and so they're doing some strange things, because most people say, well, I'll put that trip or that rare, random, odd thing I wanted to do, I'll put it in the back and I'll do it later. I'll do it when I retire. Well, now people are going, am I going to get that option? Is the world going to be alive? Am I going to be healthy? Am I going to live through next year? So they're making rash decisions and rash judgment calls because they've been pushed to reprioritize and prioritize based on fear and emotion. And so we got people making bad decisions because of fear, and sadly, other people are taking advantage of it. I understand that. So I just want everybody to absorb as much education, information, dialogue, communication, anything. And what you don't need, pitch out, and what you can use, and make the best decision for you and your family possible. That's all I want. I want everyone to feel like they were not backed into a corner and forced to make a decision out of fear. I want them to feel that they had adequate time to process and compost what has been said, done, researched, and that they could make their own decision. It's becoming a world where we can't do that anymore, though. So, it's strange. It's strange when, like, the Marine that was basically called the people on the Afghanistan issue, he had created a PayPal link for people wanting to support him because they were going to basically dishonorably discharge him. And PayPal shut down the link. And I'm like, why do you care why anyone in the world wants to send this man money? All you do is you send money. You shouldn't care about why it's being sent, unless it's like coming from an illegal entity or something like that. So I'm sitting here going, that's kind of, we've got about 5, if you really think about it, we've got about 5 organizations / businesses that run the entire world. What if you had to pare yourself down to 5 other people's point of view for your entire life? Wouldn't that be scary? You picked 5 people that you don't like, and now you've got to live your life according to them. Isn't that scary? That's a scary thought, isn't it? Basically, that's what has happened the last 19 months. And we're all in this same, some of us really like it, some of us feel safe, and some of us are like, no, this is not where I wanted to be. This is not how I wanted to live my life. And so it's just kind of scary to think that we're here and we're America. It's a terrible thought, though. Isn't it sad to be an American and have to think about things like this because you've seen so many strange things that you never thought would happen in this land happen? I mean, it's scary. It's absolutely terrifying. So, I keep trying to, boy, I'm burning that VPN account up to try to get as much information from the other places as possible, because the other news outlets, like there was an Indian news outlet that absolutely held President Biden to the fire the other night. And they were like, America, your president is an idiot. You know, he's ruining your nation, and you're allowing it to happen, and you're as stupid as him if you're allowing it to happen. I was sitting there going, well, nobody in America heard about this. Well, they really do structure what we see and what we get to use as information for our own lives. And that's sad, because when you start that VPN account up and you go across the borders, you're like, oh, so the way America's seeing it is not quite the way the rest of the world's seeing it. And it's very enlightening, especially to track the numbers across the world with all of this that's going on. And of course, I also said you can use COVID Tracker at the CDC for U.S. numbers, and you can also Google Johns Hopkins weekly hospitalization trends, and you will know in any county, in any state, how many beds are being used, if they're COVID or non-COVID, if they're ICU or regular, and you will know the rate that's used and what are open. You can see anywhere in the U.S. So if you hear these stories about rampant use, please go to those websites and use them. Get your own information. You don't have to swallow what anybody else is telling you. Go look for yourself. And that has been very helpful for me, especially because I'm so rural. It's been very helpful for me to understand and kind of research who's telling me the truth and who's not, so I can see which news agencies I can have a little bit more trust in and which ones I just absolutely cannot. That's been very helpful. Also, they are changing the rules as we go with the vaccinated and unvaccinated status. Right now, the FDA unanimously said no to the booster after they've been gung-ho on everything else, which should make us all ask some questions. But right now, if you have 2 shots, you're considered vaccinated. And I read that this is per the CDC and the FDA and NIH. If you have 2 shots, you're considered vaccinated. If you've had one of the 1 shots, they're basically telling people go back and get a second, because they want 2 shots to be deemed vaccinated. But if you've had 2 shots, you have to have had that second shot in 2 weeks for it to get into your body, and after those 2 weeks, you're considered vaccinated. So if you only have 1 shot, you're considered unvaccinated. Welcome to the real world. If you've got 2 shots, but it's not been 2 weeks since you've had your shots, you're still considered unvaccinated. So if something happens 72 hours after vaccination, guess what? You get put in the unvaccinated category. Is that not sorry? Is that not sorry? And a lot of people do not understand that. And I'm like, it's manipulation. You have to be very careful and understand when they're giving you data charts or they're giving you certain statements, you have to really be careful and ask for definitions like, okay, what does this word mean? What does this word mean? So if there's any measure for the word, okay, how are you measuring that word? What's the definitive have to be this word? And you'll find a lot of information out that way as well. And if you're like me, you just want straight information. I don't like to play this politician game. I don't like to play this tribalism game. I don't like to play this pitting ideologues. I just want information. And I want to make a decision that's right for me and my family, and I want to be left alone. And that's so difficult. Why is that so difficult? Why do I feel pressure from like every angle? Had a lady on Facebook get mad because they said they were not going to shut her schools down. She wanted school shut down. Well, she moved here from another state. I understand why you think schools can shut down, but in our area, we do not have the ability to shut our schools down because many of our students do not have home internet. They don't have the tools they need at home to do their schoolwork, and they don't have someone that can help them if they get in a bind. And of course, she wanted to, who do you think you are? You don't know anything. You need to shut up. The immediate garbage that you normally get slammed when somebody's just being emotional. And I said, ma'am, I said, I used to work for AmeriCorps. I said, as a tutor. I said, I was stationed in the 2nd to 4th grade pod, but I did all ages. I said, up to secondary. And I said, I can tell you that in our primary schools, I had almost as many parents that could not read as parents that could. So I was teaching 2nd and 3rd grade parents to read so they could help their children with sight words. So I know that if I was tutoring those children, they're in high school now, or just about, or the next 2 grades are behind them are. I know that those parents do not have the skills to get their children through secondary level education. We do not need to do this. I said we are going to see a generation that is going to have a huge burden, you know, taking care of themselves with, you know, they've lost skills, they've lost a lot of the information that they should have retained because they were not daily accessing it for the amount of time it takes to make it stick. We're going to see a couple of generations that are going to really struggle just to compost information and regurgitate information and feel confident in adult life. We're going to see that in the rural areas, because if we lose any school time, it's a huge detriment to our little society. And she finally hushed. And I was like, look, I was a parole officer for a decade, and the one thing that I always try to check is if they had their GED, and if they did not, I put them right on that. And sadly, I mean, 60% or more did not have their high school diploma, so I pushed a lot of people to go get a GED. So we're in a very rural area that does not really respect education, and I hope I've made a change in some people's lives. But these emotional decisions have non-emotional consequences that are real-world effective, and we have to think about that. Dave Politis was on the other day on Can-Am Missing on YouTube, and he said that just in his community, there have been 13 juvenile suicides in the last year. 13. How often, and he's in like the outskirts of Montana, but it's a fairly large city. How often do you hear about youth dying like that? And it's normally a tragedy, it's on the news, the whole community comes together. They're at 13. So they've done this approximately once every 3 to 4 weeks for the last year. Can you imagine what that does to a community and the psyche going on there? So we have to think about how this is affecting other areas of life as well. We can't just, you know, say our fear threshold is the only fear threshold. We have to look at other people's fears. And we have to look at them logically and rationally and say, okay, how are we making our decisions? Are we making the right decisions? Are we looking at the right numbers? Or are we paying attention and fearing the right thing? Because sometimes I don't think we do. So yeah, that's just something I've been worried about. But y'all need to read the news. Outside of this nation, please go get a VPN account and read the news. Focus on Israel and UK. Dip down in India. India's doing great things. No vaccine. Therapeutics only. They're doing great things. Go read about it. So yeah, it's been a weird week. But I think if, going back to Brian, because this is going to go through multiple states, I believe that he'll have warrants in other states before this is done. I believe if he was using the bank card, he probably pinged it the whole way home. So we may see more states add in on this. It would only make sense if they did, if it was enough to worry about. Yeah, Sky News Australia is really good too. I like them. They're pretty, I mean, they'll just tell you how they feel about it, and I like that. I do see the Daily Mail from time to time. The Telegraph yesterday was the doozy. So if you read the London Telegraph, yesterday was a doozy. The last 2 days have been doozies with the Telegraph. That story about DARPA, everybody should know. Whew, I don't think I can say it here. If I say any more than that, they'll probably can me. But everybody should go look that up. Whew, DARPA, the Pentagon, and Fauci. That was a humdinger. You just have to take it for what it is and say, is this something that I can invest time and thought in? Is it not? Make your own decision about that as well. But go back to laundry. If he pinged that debit card the whole way home, he may have other states come into this. If not, we've still got a multi-state. It's going to end up with a federal umbrella. He is going to be in a, you know, there's going to be a lengthy jail sentence at the end of this for him. There's potentially no other way. He's already in felony land with the use of the unauthorized devices, the bank fraud. So, and that's probably just the tip of the iceberg once they get going and can lock down the charges that they're going to place. They probably got the first felony and thought, we'll put that out, so if we get him, we can haul him in and hold him. So basically that is just a physical, we can keep him. Yeah, well, a lot of people, you know, people got mad at me when this all first started. I had a really good friend that I loved to death. Love her to death. And she would call me just absolutely frantic about everything that was starting. And this was when everything first started on the news. This was coming our way. And I said, I said, chill. I said, don't freak out until it's right at your doorstep. Then freak out. But wait, we've got to stay logical so we can make a plan until it gets right to us and we need to flee. I said, normally the government makes it seem so much worse than it is because they're trying to hype up fear and emotion and get viewers and responses and create a stir. I said, so I'm going to automatically, the energy I'm giving it, I'm going to automatically reduce it by 50% at least. And I'm going to sit back on my heels and I'm going to wait for more information. And she was like, oh, but, and she was quite wealthy, bless her heart. She was the most wealthy friend I've ever had. But we got along just fine. She even stayed a week with me and was fine in my little dinky house. I went and flew out and spent time with her. And so I thought we were able to cross those lines. And we weren't like, playing the normal game people play as you're not in my clique. So I thought we had surpassed that. And then she calls me and she's like, well, did you not know that, the Microsoft man has put so many millions of dollars toward this? And I said, well, he would, because he's also trying to create something to stop it. So he's going to make money. How dare you? He's giving his money. He's not giving his money. He's going to make a profit somewhere. He's giving it all for free. He's not going to make a profit off this. Then he's going to own a patent. He's going to make money off the patent. You just don't like rich people, do you? I don't know how to answer that, because I thought we got along just fine. You're rolling in it. Yeah, I didn't think there was anything we needed to discuss. I thought we were just friends because we were good people that liked each other. And she hung up on me. She called me back in a couple of days, and she had watched the news and got hyped up, and she just, as soon as I answered the phone, she just unloaded on me. She was mad. She was upset. She just unloaded on me. And I was like, whoa. I was like, do you realize what you just did? And she's like, what? And I said, well, you know how you tell me your daughter will get amped up about something at home and then call and make it your problem? I said, you just did that to me. I said, so potentially could this be a learned behavior? How dare you? Whoa, I just really wanted to know, had you noticed that you do this? Because this is the first time I've had it directed at me and I'm really feeling it. Could this potentially be something that you need to talk to her about? Could this potentially be how you make her feel? Don't you think you might want to have a talk? How dare you? Don't try to psychoanalyze me. But don't call me and scream at me, because I'm going to psychoanalyze you if you're screaming at me, because I need to know how to deal with you. And she called me back a couple of days later. She's mad at me that time for real. She called me back a couple of days later and asked me if I had stopped going places and stopped. I said, I don't go anywhere. I don't do anything. I'm always sick. I'm always at home. My husband's an essential worker, so he's going to work. I was like, what more can you ask for me? She's like, well, you need to do everything you can. I was like, I'm doing enough, but I'm not going to sit in my house and shake out of fear and be a hermit and try to not have any contact. I said, that's not healthy. She goes, you're a murderer. Excuse me? If you're not doing everything you can, you're a murderer. Was that easy for you? Because hearing it was not easy for me. Did you say that very easy? Because if you did, we need to talk about that. And she's like, I don't understand why you're getting mad. Okay, as someone who used to supervise murders, comparing me to one is an erroneous thing to do. Just not the right thing to do. Because if you can devalue me in 5 seconds, then we have an issue. And she would not listen to me. Like, she would not hear where I was coming from, but I was to swallow everything she said. We've not spoken over a year. And she was like, I love her to death. I still have her initials tattooed on my arm. She will always have a place in my heart. But unfortunately, because she is super emotional and hyper irrational and gets that fight or flight and just spits it on everybody else, she's not somebody that I can effectively have in my life and feel comfortable having in my life right now. And that's sad. That's super sad. Because when I said, listen, you can't do this. If we're going to be friends, you can't take it out on me. If you're going to be super scared and hyper emotional, you can't take it out on me. There's a hard no there. And she thought I was restricting or limiting her. And I wasn't a true friend. And I was like, well, I just 3 times let you absolutely just spew vomit on me. But okay, I'm not a true friend. So we haven't spoken over a year. And it's sad to think that adults would do that. But when you get hyper emotional, you do normally pick somebody, normally the person that loves you most or the person you think will not leave you for any reason. And that's normally the person we take our emotions out on. And I can identify what she's doing, but I don't want to be that person. So I said, no, I'm sorry. I ain't gonna do it. And it's sad to think that our world has gotten there where adults treat each other like that. But hey, we're here and beyond. We're here and beyond, and now we're fixing to cull half of the population because they're dangerous, even though they're no more dangerous than anybody else. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, I would like for logic to come back to the world, you know. I'd like for logic to come back and make a landing again. It would be nice. But y'all, if you don't have a VPN account, if you're not reading world headlines, you need to do so. You will get such a better view. I'm just telling you. Okay, and again, on the laundry parents, I don't think because Florida has that weird rule, there's no accessory after the fact in Florida for parents. Weird rule. I really think that they will end up with an aiding or abetting charge. They may have an obstruction charge as well, depending on the timeline of what knowledge they got and how they acted after receipt of that knowledge. But I think it's going to be hard for them to not have some kind of aiding and abetting, even though it's their right to not give any information. You don't have to volunteer information. You don't have to tell them where he is. You don't have to tell them the last thing he said to you. They're in no way, you know, forced to do that. You would think that somebody that had the right motives would immediately tell you everything in hopes to clear up the picture. But then again, I've heard that there is a background with the legal court system, justice system in the family, so they may have somebody on the inside guiding their behavior. You go deal with the dogs. I appreciate you stopping in. I'm about done. Also, everybody pay attention to Utah, where the other 911 call came in from. I'm hoping that maybe there will be some, like, security camera, tape roll, something to substantiate what the caller called in to state. And that way that will be even better for the case. Should he try to use a defense if he is arrested for this, if he tries to use the defense that I was always the victim and I had to stand up for myself and then this occurred. Now with the Utah witness 911 call that says he was the aggressor, if we could get tape to also substantiate that, that would be great. But this right now, the only warrant he has is from Wyoming. They think he still is in Florida, but I'm sure they're probably looking for him in multiple states. They've got like a $20,000 reward for information leading to his arrest now. And I think Wyoming will probably have more charges to add later. I don't know how long they're going to take to formulate those. And I assume it depends on what all information they got out of the search that they did at all the families' homes the other day. And I'm certain that's how they found out he had been using the bank, because I'm sure as soon as they found a receipt or something, they went ahead and got a search warrant, pulled those records, and boom, that's how they found that out. So I think as they start digging, more may come up to the top. So this is going to get ever-changing daily. I just wanted to hop in. He's $20,000 reward for his arrest. He has a arrest warrant out of Wyoming for bank fraud, basically. He used the debit card, and it's an amount over $1,000, so it's felony. And parents in Florida can't have an accessory after the fact charge, so my money is on aiding and abetting. Yeah, obstruction seems like the logical way to go, but I think they've done more than obstruct. I think after everything is known, they might get an aiding and abetting. That's my concern. And that's where we are. And I think for the next 2 weeks, I think we will see more charges fall and land on his head as the information and the coroner's autopsy comes back, and as their search through the tech devices continues, I think we will see more land on his head. Be careful who you're getting your information from, because there are some groups on YouTube that are just trying to emotionally hit you with a headline to suck you in and get that like and that view. They'll tell you anything. There is a guy, his name is, well, it's Crime, spelled C-R-Y-M-E-S, I believe. He is really good. He will not tell you anything that is not so. If he can't verify it, he will tell you. And if other people say something that is not verified, he'll let you know. They asked, do you think he's the type to take his own life? I think if he gets put in a corner, that he is very capable of making a poor decision. I think it will be, I think he's going to make a highly emotional decision. Right now he's running and he feels safe because he thinks he could outrun this. If he gets to a point before he's got to where he's emotionally leaning to where I can't outrun this, I'm going to go to prison. I'm going to have to deal with this. Because of the switching of personas I saw in the body cam review that I did, I believe that there may be some kind of affective disorder going on, and every time I type affective, YouTube and autocorrect wants to type effective. So, but I think that he's got like borderline personality or something going on there to where he is not the best problem solver or decision maker. So I think if he got put in a, backed in a corner and put there and was highly emotional, I think he very well could make a poor decision, and that concerns me as well. But I think it would take pressure, and I think it would take him thinking there was no other way out. So I don't think he's as apt to do it as someone else, but I think it's a thought in the back of his mind, should things not work out the way he wants them to work out, and he gets really caught in a moment and knows he can make that decision. I'm thinking that he probably will not even know when they've caught up with him. The cops are playing it really cool. They're playing it really derp. So they're kind of saying, oh yeah, we let that happen. We're so far behind. We need help. We're going to put money on it. And so he probably is feeling very cocky, like, haha, they're putting money on my head because they know they can't find me. And the cops may just be using that to make him think they can't find him. So they may be really getting close. Who knows? But they're probably going to keep him feeling pretty sassy because they don't want to put him in that position, that frame of mind, and probably for the same reason I just stated. So cops play those games, those mental games, especially when there is someone, like a highly emotional case like this, someone that is affecting the entire country in the news feed, and they do play these games to get them in custody and keep them from making some bad decisions. They will act like they're lost on the case and they can't find them, they need all the help in the world, and it bolsters that individual's cockiness, and they make mistakes and get arrested. But they get arrested quickly, and they don't have time to feel in a corner and make those bad decisions. So I think the cops are playing some chess with him mentally. So we'll see who wins. The cops, I'm sure, will, but it's kind of funny to watch the headlines and know, I doubt that's really how you feel, but it's just a game. Sadly, news headlines are just emotional games. They're just tug and pull. I mean, that's all it is an emotional tug and pull. Just to keep us all, I guess, guessing. I don't know. It's sad to say. But yeah, I could see him doing that, but I think it would be absolutely an act of complete and utter desperation. I don't see him planning it out and methodically taking care of business. I see him only if he gets in a really big bind and has a 5-second decision to make and makes a poor one. At the baseline, I do believe there's a little bit of a coward, and cowards are normally not that committed to harming themselves. They prefer to harm others. So, but it's been interesting. If anyone watched the behavior panel, I didn't know they had did this until I saw them on Dr. Phil, a clip of Dr. Phil. And so I didn't even watch the Dr. Phil clip. I went straight back to the behavior panel page, and I was like, oh my God, they did this. And I looked at it. And they noticed some things that I noticed, like he used the protective hand, the fig leaf covering and stuff like that. But they didn't see him switching between the personas like I did. And I was like, how did you not see that? And it may be because of my training in law enforcement as a parole officer with a highly stressful and sadly a high ratio of mental illness presenting in the demographic that I supervise, violent and aggressive males. So I picked up on it immediately. The first couple minutes were like, this is disjointed. It doesn't make sense. It's wigging me out. I don't understand. As a parole officer, if someone had presented that way to me, I would have been like, sit you back down. We're searching you, your car, your home, because I knew something was up. But then as I watched him, he switched gears and he went into victim, little 5-year-old. I don't understand this. Can you please help me? I'm so worried and concerned. I need your help. And then he would go to cocky bravado land. And I was like, he's switching personas. He's switching channels. And then the last few minutes, after he realized that they were going to resolve the issue positively for him, you see him switch between them quite often. And he thinks he looks smooth doing it, I'm sure. But somebody like me has seen it a lot. I figured out what he was doing after we got it, and I was like, he's switching, because I felt like there were two people being interviewed by the cops, and I was like, he's switching personas. It wasn't that he didn't know how to react. All the personas come jumbled in the first few minutes, and then he went to victim mode, and then he went to bravado mode, but then he had to keep going to victim mode to make sure that the cops stayed on his side. And I was like, oh my gosh, they didn't get that at all. And I was like, how did they not pick that up? How did you not see that? How could you not understand? How could they not see the pattern behaviors to calm down that they both used? Which tells us if it's pattern behaviors that they go to automatically, you know, they're not really conscious of their behavior. They've done them so often, they go into them automatically. So we know this behavior is repetitive. So we know it's a cycle. And from the two separate calls now, we can say it's probably a cycle that they were both, you know, they switched from victim to aggressor probably back and forth. And I was like, they didn't catch any of that. How did they not catch any of that? And like, I've spoken with Scott Rouse before, and I was like, Scott, I have faith in you, Scott. You're a homeboy, you know, like Oak Ridge down the road. And I was like, you didn't catch that? I'm not like super smart. I'm not like, you know, I have useless knowledge crammed in my head, but I don't have like so much useless knowledge that I need to push my glasses up every 5 seconds, and, you know, but I would anticipate that they would have caught that. And so I don't think that, I think he uses that, and he's done it so well that when the way he uses it, people just don't pick up. And I think I only did because I worked with such a high risk, horrible caseload for a long time that I had to be aware of that. And it's like borderline personality. It's just really strange. It really kind of, when it clicked, it clicked. But I would have sat them down and searched everything they had. But as a parole officer, I can search anything at any time just because the wind changed. But as police, they don't have that ability. So I understand that they had more restrictions on them. As a parole officer, I would have said, that's it. Searching everything. So he made me terribly, terribly wiggy. I just did not like he gave me the heebie-jeebies. His whole presentment gave me the heebie-jeebies. And you can hear, when I watched the next couple minutes and he switched into victim mode, you can hear the surprise in my voice. Because I was like, that makes no sense. What's going on here? I was like, is he really a victim? What's going on? And then I figured out, as soon as he switched back, I was like, oh my God, he's switching personalities. And we call that portrayal. So he uses whatever is going to be handiest because he basically is so lost in his own mind that he shifts his behavior to whatever scenario it needs to be. And so those people are very unstable because you never know how they're going to respond or react because they don't have a consistency about themselves. They switch, and they're completely relative to the dynamic they're exposed within. And they're very hard to, you know, the guesswork on them is very difficult. So I can understand why everybody was concerned. The media likes to control. The media likes to control narratives. And it's just like when the 200 and so many were up in Canada, they kept a hush pretty much on that as well. And the only reason they're peddling this one is because the presentment of this girl, she was all the way from Florida, all the way to Wyoming and Utah. So basically everybody on the way there has got an attachment to the case because they went through their state. A lot of the girls, a lot of the young people that go to YouTube, they look at these people as potential influencers, so they have the social media draw, they have the internet draw. And then for people watching the news, she has that sweet, mousy little innocent girl next door, so it draws, you know, everybody else in, all the moms, pops, and people that can identify with her. So she had a very large audience emotionally and subconsciously that would be drawn to the story. And I believe they picked her story because if you Google, there's probably dozens of other stories that profile just like this one almost. And I think they picked this one because they knew it would pull the most eyes to this because we've had such a busy news week. I think they wanted to pull eyes. I think that everybody that gets harmed, like we should know what's going on in our communities. It should at least be on local level news, you would think. Yeah, she touches on, I mean, regardless of race or sex, she touches almost on everybody's radar in some way, identifies in some way. So if you have 2 stories and you know one will cater to a larger audience and you're trying to draw attention, you're going to give that one that caters to a larger audience. And sadly, you have stations that do that all the time. Rather than give stories that should be heard a voice, they want to cater to the audience. Yes, yeah, and there is, oh gosh, there was another documentary posted. And I watched it just a couple weeks ago about the school and everything up north. I'll have to try to find it and see which one to tell you all. It was terribly good. It was wonderful. And also, Selena Spooky Boo, or whatever that girl is on TikTok and everywhere, she actually did a whole little 3-minute video and did a little memorial for them in her yard, and it was very educational. Yes, thank you for chiming in there, Spirit Matter. I appreciate that. It's great. Those are all great things to look at, and definitely we need to start, when we watch the news, we need to start saying, why did this make the news? We need to start asking that a lot. And like, I don't mind the news picking up these stories. They're stories that people can learn from, but when you understand the context why they choose them, you get kind of sour to them a little bit. You're like, news media do better. Yeah, but they were all in like one little area. You want to know something that I think is dodgy? I'll tell you what I think is dodgy. Okay, so y'all know Brushy Mountain Prison in Tennessee, in Morgan County, Tennessee. Media Literacy 101. That's great. Okay, so Brushy Mountain Penitentiary, which is now like it's got a moonshine place, a winery in it, and you can go to tours now, and they do concerts there now. So it's like a little community hub of interaction, and they bring events in. So it's great socially for this area, but I was one of the last parole officers to take some of the last inmates from Brushy Mountain before it shut down, and I was actually at the closing ceremony when they closed it. Of course, I grew up with Warden Davis. He was like my bonus grandpa. So Brushy Mountain played a big role in my life, and it's a very ominous building. I mean, it really does kind of shock and awe you when you go there. But I got used to it. I had paroled some of the last people out in February, and it closed like 8 weeks later, something like that. Because it was still kind of cold the day we were there at the closing ceremony. It was still kind of cold. And I had just gotten the last of the parolees released before they sent everybody else to Morgan County Correctional or to Northeast or wherever they sent them. And so I supervised some of the last guys from Brushy Mountain. Well, when they shut it down and they decommissioned it, all the inmates that died there were buried in the graveyard. If they didn't have family to come get them or something, they were buried in the graveyard on the grounds. So there's this huge graveyard behind Brushy Mountain. And they were marked by a white stone that had their TOMIS ID, which is their Tennessee Felony Offender Identification Number. And so you didn't know, like, you couldn't read the name, but you could read the TOMIS and look it up, and you could see who it was. Well, when the state decommissioned it, because they decommissioned the entire grounds, I'll have you know they picked up every stone and sent them to be like recycled or crushed or something, because they didn't want to leave property on the acreage. You couldn't leave their stones that had their numbers for identification? Really? So now if you have a loved one buried there, you have to go and request the maps and the grid to find out where your loved one is. And it's very hard to kind of figure it out because the lay of the land and everything. I thought it was horrible. I was like, guys, that just kind of turned my stomach when I heard it, because I thought the last thing, to me, that was like desecrating a grave. You took something that was, even if it was just their TOMIS identification number, I understand that, but it was still an ID marker. And it still represented that this is their spot now. And they took all of those up. And I thought, seriously, I understand that a new person they might not want to have to deal with all the tombstones. Well, sorry, you bought a graveyard behind a prison. You're going to have to deal with it. But I just thought that was like desecration. To me, it was, because no matter who was there, no matter what they did, they should be respected enough to have their stones left for identification purposes. I just thought it was wrong. And the whole community was kind of, they were all kind of up in a tizzy about that. We thought it was super disrespectful. And to know that bless their hearts, people that had no one to claim them, now they can't even be easily found. Yeah, well, they do. I mean, it's got a sign and everything, but they took all the benches and stones, they stripped them all. TDOC took them off. Took them all. They took everything off the property, basically, that was not bolted down. And I thought, and you even took the gravestones. How tacky. So that is something that I immediately, when I heard, I think I was still working when I heard it, and I was like, that's tacky. That is nasty. How would you do that? And, you know, like, then you have the officers, you know, big, why would you even care? I care. I care. Because no matter who they are, they're still somebody's loved one, and you should care. You know, just human courtesy, you should care. But I thought that was super tacky. But apparently that is like normal for when prison decommissions. If there's a graveyard on site, they can take everything. Anything that they put there with state-funded money can be recouped. And I thought, tacky. Just, yeah, decency. It's just tacky. It's just tacky. That kind of... there's a lot of times TDOC made me go, ugh, you know, and that was just one of them. So, and I'm very vocal, so everybody in God knew how I felt. So, and I've been wanting to go back and do a tour since they've got it all kind of revamped for tours and for this, you know, social community aspect of it, because you know, I've walked the hallways and had people yell and spit at me, and then I had some of them scream and wave because they all, you know, depending on the interaction we had when they were released. But I would like to go back and walk it and see how I feel walking it now since it's been turned over as a sightseeing venture. Just see if I feel anything different. But I was so upset about the graveyard. That's one thing that, if I do go, I will be going to the graveyard to just pay reverence, because I think what they did to them is horrible. You know, I'm one of those people, like, wherever I'm planted, I don't care, but other people should care. They would build a church on top of a shaman medicine. Oh, really? So it was like a sacred spot. If I do go back, which I've been pushing my husband to say I want to go back. They closed for the winter, but they're open like till I think October, November. It's just right down the hill. It's just like 30 minutes away. But if I do go back, I will take my camera and phone, and I will take some video for you. And it's really, I mean, the building itself is really eerily majestic. It's the nicest way I can say it. But, you know, there's people that has escaped that turned themselves back in because they couldn't get out of the holler. The terrain is horrible. Oh, yeah, that was like when the Christian armies would defeat the Vikings, they would set the altar above, like, the leader of the Vikings' grave, just for, like, dominance, thinking it was a disrespectful way for them to show that their religion won. And I was like, okay. It's like, okay. That's, you know, the extremities of humanity, they all kind of, you know, I mean, I'm a super, like, a spiritual person, you know, but I'm not, like, uber man-made religious kind of per se. Though I have a small church family and they mean a lot to me, but I'm not as rigid in that box as most people. And so I would read a lot through history, and I would be like, tacky, 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 tacky. And every religion represented in any kind of historical context has done something super tacky. It's like just super tacky. So apparently it's just like the norm for, it's just super tacky. Yes. Yeah. Now I knew about that. Yeah. The mosques, and yeah, that was because that whole area it's been such a tumultuous area. There's some really good historical, like, documentaries about that area. Oh, Kazi's up from his nap. He is mad because he woke up and he's in his kennel. Yeah, the stone circles, yeah. That's something I would like to see for myself, but I doubt I'll ever get across the way. Now, because my heritage, my dad's heritage is from Ireland, my husband last year for Christmas bought me sea glass that had been washed between Great Britain and Ireland, and it goes back and forth depending on the season and the current, and the lady collects it, and I got to call, like, do a voice call or video call. She had like 60 stones picked out, and I picked out the one I wanted, and she set it into a silver ring for me. So my husband said I needed something from over there. So that's my Irish heritage object for him, which I thought was a sweet gesture. Yeah, who knows what has been done throughout time. I mean, what it was potentially could have been if people have ruined half of it or done something else. Yeah, the sea glass was sweet. I thought it was a very thoughtful gift because I know it's probably somewhere I will never get to see in person. So that was nice. And I do have some from the powwows and some of the elders that my mom, she would take us to the Cherokee and the Lenape get-togethers. And I always ended up, because I was at that age where I would help with the little kids, so I always ended up in we're making something. So I have all these little knickknacks that we made. And so I have stuff from that side, and I think he knows how I'm made, so he wanted to get me something from Ireland. Yeah, my traveling days are, my legs, I get about a 3-minute warning when they start to go out. I get about a 3-minute warning, so I have to take a rolly cart everywhere I go, because when I get the 3-minute warning, I have to sit down because my nerve function is not working correctly. So yeah, it's embarrassing to be a big old burly tattooed woman and have to use a rolly cart, let me tell you. Belfast. Oh, you're... Oh, you've got a story. Is that Dusty? Dusty Blue? You've got a story and a half. That would be something I would like to know. If you would like to tell me about it, you can email me at watersworkload@gmail.com. Well, happy early birthday. Yeah, I've gotten to the age where I'm realizing there are things that I'm not going to get to put on the list or even have the chance to probably mark off, and I'm making peace with that. I have a terminal disorder. It's like it's affecting my organs, but it will take a long time to really take them out. So I'm going to make it to an older age, probably farther than I deserve to make it. But it kind of makes you have to think about things. You have to deal with your own mortality, and that can make you have some really existential crisis moments. You need to share that. You need to email me, watersworkload@gmail.com. I want to hear about that. That is something I would love to hear. That's something you should write in a book and sell, because that is a story that everybody would love to hear. We all have lives where we have something that somebody else would love to hear and cherish along with us, but we don't often share those things. I don't know why. We share the bad things. Why don't we share the good things? Sadly, the bad things are easier to believe half the time. That's why people get focused on bad news, bad information, but that's just why we get stuck on that. Negativity seems to sell easier and better. Good stuff doesn't tend to travel that far. That's why another reason the news focuses on what they focus on. Yeah, the pressure, like the few times that I have been in the air, the pressure, and because of the nerve issues that I have from spine down, the pressure in the airplanes on takeoff and landing are very hard on me. Very hard on me. You definitely should write that. You absolutely should write. I'm going to tell you, you should write that. And you should write it for yourself, like you're talking to yourself. Then you should sell that puppy, because that's one of those stories that people would read and people would cherish, because you don't get those good, interesting, but positive, uplifting stories anymore. It's all mystery, true crime stuff now. And that's, we need some uplifting stuff. We need some uplifting stuff. Cozzy's very mad at me because he's awake now, and he's like, Mama, I'm not supposed to be in my kennel. I own this house. He has got to have a bath later, because on the 29th he goes in for surgery. Don't tell him. And so I'm going to give him a bath, and I'm going to shave him, I give him his haircut. I'm going to shave his little haircut and trim his legs, and then I'll shave before I send him to the vet. My vet knows that I always prep shave him for surgery. She's just gotten used to me. Yeah, we need positivity. That's why I tell you it's bad news, but I have to also try to talk to you and let you understand why they shape it the way they do and stuff. So I always want you to understand how they're trying to manipulate you. So, and when it comes to things I tell you, research. I don't even care if it comes out of my mouth. Research. Question everyone and everything and do your research. But I'm going to go dunk Kazi, give him a puppy dog bath. He's due a bath and a blowout. He loves to fight the hair dryer. That's his favorite thing right now. And I'm going to get him settled for the night. I don't expect any more news to break on this story. So obviously if Down Under True Crime comes on tonight, they will probably talk about the findings as well. I recommend Sharon's channel. Go and listen to the girls and join in the chat. Great, positive, lovely group. They've got a healing chat. They're a good little group. So Down Under Crime Talks, I'm sure Sharon will discuss this later if she's on tonight. And I will try to come back as soon as I hear something else. I'm working on a little educational video, but it's going to take me a little while to get it all together because I actually have to make notes. Normally I just spitball it. So be patient. More stuff is coming. And yeah, if you've got a minute, go watch my little video about Ryan Upchurch. It says My Life is a Movie, Mama Liz reaction. And listen to the strange things that are happening in his world right now, and it's because of this super hyper emotional fixated society that we've created with all this drama. And bless his heart, like within 5 minutes of me posting that video, he had responded because he knew I was doing it. He was like, boom, and he was like, thank you. He is a great young man. I like his new stuff. It's maturing. His writing ability just behooves me. He's just like a master lyricist. He paints a picture really well. And he's from my area, so our pictures sync, and I get it, so I understand. But he's a young, prominent person in this area, and he does a lot for his hometown and for his home state. I can't brag on him enough. Ryan Upchurch and JJ Lawhorn, they are my go-to country boys. If you don't know either of them, check them out. Ryan Upchurch and JJ Lawhorn. JJ, I believe, just signed to Holler Boy Records, but JJ has been singing for quite some time. My favorite song is Stomping Grounds, or you can go to the one that's Good Old Boys Like Us. And he's been singing for quite a while. When you watch his videos, you can tell that. He and his fiance just had a new baby last year. Her name is Juniper, and I made Juniper a baby quilt. And now I'm making Juniper's first toddler quilt because she just turned 1, and she's getting into a big girl bed. And so I'm making her first big girl toddler quilt. So I'm excited. She's got strawberry red hair, so I'm making a blue thistle pattern so that her hair will pop. So, great people, great singers. JJ is somebody that I think has got standing. He's got a good mountain voice. He's not just Appalachian. He's got a mountain voice, not just country. He's got a mountain voice. Yeah, Juniper was so great. So she has the same. It's Juniper Jane. Yeah, so she has the same initials as her daddy, J.J. Lawhorn. I thought that was so precious. And I'm going to try every couple years to make her a new quilt. And her mother, Kelsey Eversole, if you find her on Facebook, she makes really gorgeous bracelets. And she normally, if I make a quilt and send it, I'll get bracelets back. She's one of those, she has to send something back. She makes really beautiful jewelry. So if you find her on Facebook, you can also find her on Instagram. She sells beautiful jewelry. And if you've not heard JJ sing, I recommend Good Old Boys Like Us and Stomping Grounds. So I think Kazi has given up on me. I'm going to go run his bath, take care of my little boys here, and my Oscar, my little old man. Oscar's almost 8. And Haley graduates in May, and I fully anticipate Haley taking him to try to see if he will stay in her home, and which he loves her to death, so I think he probably will. But it's going to be strange not having 2 dogs here because I've always had Oscar with me. Oscar was a rescue. They found him in a factory parking lot. They thought that he was just coming over to eat the scraps out of the guy's lunch boxes. Turned out that my friend that was the QC there, or QA, for like 3 nights in a row, he was still in the parking lot at 8 p.m. And the 3rd night, she realized he probably doesn't belong to anybody. She picked him up, and he had a huge knot on the side of his head, so she took him home. Well, her bulldogs were like, no, we do not accept this little boy. We don't want him. So she called me, and she said, I'm afraid my dogs are going to kill him. Will you take him and rehome him? And I said, sure, meet me halfway up the hill. So I met, and I got him. I had him home. The first thing that had to go is he had this huge abscess on his head. And I assumed that's why somebody threw him out. They thought something was wrong with him. I looked at my daughter and I said, we've got to drain this and deal with it. She said, okay, that's fine. And I thought, I'm fixing to be dog bit. I thought, I'm fixing to be dog bit, but I've got to get this fixed. We sat him in the sink because he was just a little puppy then. And I had to cut and drain that abscess. And he just sat there with his little big eyes going, thank you, thank you. He never even offered to be mean. And then we had to bathe him. We had to flush that out, get it dealt with. We chose to use like we shaved him, put little butterflies to hold it. We didn't want to put stitches in him. And 2 days later, I knew he would never leave, and that was over 7.5 years ago. So Oscar Arlo has been with us forever. And Kazi was a gift from one of my friends since kindergarten. She had a litter of Yorkies, and I'd had such a rough year. She knew that I'd always loved her little dog Smudge, who's the daddy. And every time she would come visit me, I would just, like, give me Smudge, and I would just play with Smudge while she was at my house because I adored him. And I was like, I've always wanted one of these little guys, but I can't pay $1,000 for one of these little guys, so I'm never going to get one, but I love him. And she surprised me this spring when I was literally the sickest I'd been, and she brought me a puppy. And she said, here, mine got me through a lot. They're going to help you. And she was right. He's gotten me through a lot. And, well, the vet is just a mile up the road, and I just called her and told her what I needed. And so I sent my husband for the antibiotics. And I took him in 3 days later for all of his shots. And she double-checked my handiwork and was like, you're good. But now I've worked so close with my vet for so many years, like since I was in high school, that it's just a symbiotic relationship. So, like she's just right up the road. So I'm there literally every little whip stitch. When I get Oscar there, they take him in the back and they share him and make him do his tricks. And they laugh, and it takes me 30 minutes to get him away to leave because they all love my dog that much. That's just how it is. Oscar's loved everywhere. But she brought me this little puppy, and sure enough, that little puppy got me through my mastoiditis and has really given me something to look forward to. And my husband is in love with that little guy. He is definitely my husband's dog, but I'm the mama. And because smudge means like an imperfection, I was looking in all the other languages, and cause means blemish in Czech, so I named him Kazi. So he's after his daddy Smudge. Yeah, he is more like a child than any animal I've ever had. And I've had literally every kind of animal and some wildlife because I've been used as the, can you nurse this deer, Elizabeth? I can't keep him at the vet clinic. And I'd be like, yeah. And when we had the hunting lodge, we had USDA approval on barns to hold stuff because they had to be held to be signed off on for like 30 or 60 days for health checks. And so if somebody hit something wild, they would just put it in our barn because we were okayed by the state to have those animals. So they just put them in our barn, and we'd be like, we got another one, we're rescuing this one, you know. And so it's just the way we grew up. Night, thanks for stopping by. But yeah, me and the vet we just work so well together. And of course my daughter's in vet school, so she's going to be a veterinarian too. So it's just, yeah, we had all kinds of animals. Well, I mean, we just grew up with everything. I would put my horse in the same barn because when I trail rode him, he had smelled everything and had everything as a neighbor, so he never spooked. But everybody else's horses would run and freak out. And my horse would be like, oh, I ate dinner next to you for 5 months. Hi. So he was never scared at anything. Yeah, she's all A's, straight A's, honors, I mean, she's just one of those. And I grew up on the farm, you know, on the farm with the livestock, with the wildlife. Because just when you're that close to nature, you find baby deer and baby raccoon and baby possums everywhere. So I just grew up like that and have always worked with my vet super close. But now my daughter is like the smartest thing ever. She's top notch. There's a video where she got engaged last month down below if you want to see what. She's gorgeous. I literally, like, there's a skinny pretty girl inside of me somewhere because I had that child. And validation. And but she's like top honors. She just amazes me. She's just so freaking smart. It amazes me how smart she freaking is. So now my son came by and he wanted me to look at something on his dog. And somebody had brought a dog in, well, they kind of got found and got dumped on them, and he was trying to figure out what was wrong with it. And like within a day, his dog started showing issues. Literally like in 3 days. And I said, separate the space right now. And I said, then bring my grandbaby, Che, that's my granddog, to me and I'll see what it is. Well, what it was that dog had a candida issue to where it was just eat up with yeast. And as soon as it got into the space, it just went to Che, so I had to probiotic everybody and try to get them into the vet ASAP. So I took probiotics over and some cream to help him with the itches, and we got that poor dog into the vet the next day. And so he's getting better. But my son was like, I don't know if that's the right thing, so I'm gonna call my sister. And I was like, your mother is just as smart. Yeah, well, she's in school now. And he called her and he said, hang on, I'm sending a picture. And she goes, it's candida. She was like, listen to Mom, Mom's smart. So I thought that was funny, but he had to call for a second opinion, so I was like, cool beans, whatever. All of my kids, my daughter is super book smart, like super book smart, like to a point where it worries me. And then my son, I call him the redneck savant. He chainsaw art. He's done Lichtenberg burning. Scared me to death. He's just one of those extremely creative, like for his daily adventure, he climbs and tops trees and does tree surgery and removes problem trees, and I get videos with huge views. When he wants to scare me, he'll send me pictures and videos of where he is up in a tree. He'll stop and either take time to call me and send me pictures, or take a video and send it to me. And so I have children that excel in super different pathways, but they're each top notch at what they do. And I get, every time my son does a job, I get messages back from people going, that is just the sweetest, kindest, most genuine, lovely young man I've met in a long time. And they're like, we don't have a lot of really belief in the youth around here, but when we met him, that young man he's good. And I was like, well, thank you, I appreciate that. So I have good kids. I'm blessed as a mom. I have really good kids. So, and my son's got some videos down below too, actually somewhere he's doing some tree work. He only does little stuff for me, but when he sends me pictures, I put him in there so that y'all can see it too, because if I'm going to have a mini heart attack, you're going to have one with me. So I share. But I do try to share. We have a strange life, and it's not like most people envision. It's very different, so I try to share as much as I can so that everybody can get a glimpse of this life, because I think it's very special. Appalachia is a very special place. So I bet you he's going back to sleep. Now I'm going to wake him up for a bath. He's going to be very mad. Okay, now you have the latest update. We've had a chit chat. You're good until something else breaks. And I'm going to go take care of my doggos, and I'll see you later. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time. I'll talk to you later. Bye, guys.